Avi Rockwell is the writer, director, and executive producer of the film 1001. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. Avi, I wanted to start first and foremost by congratulating you on all the accolades for the film and all the recognition, especially now as the new year kicks off, including the Gotham Award that you won last year for Breakthrough Director. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank
How,
you.
now that we've had some time and distance from that ceremony, what does an award like that mean coming from, Gotham and for Breakthrough Director for your first feature? What does that mean to you now that we've had some distance from actually, winning the award?
I think it feels beautiful. I think as I said that night, I wasn't expecting it. Not because I didn't think that I was deserving or that the movie, wasn't deserving, but I just didn't expect to be seen. I think I so much of this movie, and as I was developing it and writing it, I was just thinking about the way that women of color don't always feel like our experiences are seen and acknowledged. And so I haven't always had the high expectations that even if this is a movie that did touch with people and resonate with them in that way, that it would be successful for in that specific aspect of it. So I think to win that, it was a beautiful moment, not only for me as a filmmaker, but just a testament to the way that this story has been very successful and just connecting with people universally.
This is your first feature. So I wanted to ask you, what was the kernel of the idea for this story, and how long, obviously you've been in the business for a while. So how long have you been wanting to tell this particular story and make it, your first feature film?
I think in many ways, I think I could say that this story has been in with me all my life in a way. Like I think just in it being such a story about my personal journey going through New York. Um, I think this movie for me, it maybe I would say within like it's crazy because it's the new year. So now I'm like, how much time? Like, I'm counting with from 2014 onward. But I mean, I didn't start writing the movie officially until 2018. But I would say that it was with me through my entire journey in a way, just me going through the experiences that I needed to in order to get to that point where I felt like I finally have the ability to articulate what I want to say about my experiences, not only as a New Yorker, but also as a woman, And so I think that it's been with me forever in many ways. But I think yes, officially 2018 onward is where I started this journey. And I think to me it was about a number of things. I definitely wanted to talk about New York and just how I felt like communities of colors and families of color experience the city. How hard it is to keep these family ties together and break generational cycles when we're constantly fighting these when we're in an environment that's hostile, a city that's hostile to our experience. But I also just wanted to talk about the journey of being a woman, and I think in the ways that Inez comes of age in her own way, in the way that she pours so much of herself into everyone else. As women, we can be so nurturing and so loving, and especially in the Black community, our women are matriarchs a lot of the time. They're taking care of everybody in the community before themselves. They're forgetting themselves and losing themselves. So I think in this way, it was an opportunity for me to say to women and also to myself that like you can't love anybody fully and in the right way until you fully loved yourself, and to not forget yourself in this journey. So
Yeah, that comes across so beautifully in the film. And speaking of the New York setting, we'll talk about New York as a setting maybe a little bit later, but I know you've cited, works by Spike Lee and Martin Scorsese as inspirations for you as a filmmaker. Were there particular films in their canons or even moments that you wanted to kind of cite or reference in your own film or draw on as inspiration or?
not really. I think I was excited. I grew up before I had clarity to say that, oh, I want to be a filmmaker. I grew up watching Scorsese and Spike movies. So I think innately they always what something I always admired about them is like I was how distinct their voices were. So I think for me to finally get the opportunity to tell my own New York story, I wanted my voice to be my own. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it wasn't the type of movie that I was very eager to be referential or acknowledging other filmmakers, explicitly. I actually looked at a lot of street photography. To me, it was just about trying to capture the essence of home. And I wanted to people to experience New York in a way that felt fully immersive, especially if people have never been to New York or never had the opportunity to experience what New York was at this time. So I really pulled a lot of reference points that felt more documentary, if anything, more than I did pull from other movies.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you next, because I know folks often say, oh, New York feels like such a character, in a given film, but that's really the case in this movie, especially as we see New York changing over, the timeline of the film. So could you just say more about your approach to, marrying, as you were saying, kind of photography, archival footage, because it's in some ways a recent period piece. So just kind of your approach to marrying your own way of using the camera with archival footage that you found and offering, as you were saying, a really unique perspective on New York City.
Yeah, I think as we were crafting the look of the film, obviously we wanted to tell the story in a way that enhances the journey of what the characters are experiences, but I always saw this story in many ways as a historical document as well, and so I think in the ways that I wanted to capture and illustrate the essence of New York as I experienced it, but also as it really was. And I think those archival moments that you referenced, it just kind of cemented the reality of like what Harlem was at the time, what New York was like at the time, and something that years from now, like I think movies, it's interesting because I think movies, to really appreciate a movie and understand it, you have to watch it multiple times. Most people watch a movie once and then they move on. You do have your favorites that you might have watched, 25, 100 times. But I think a great movie is like reading a book. You have to really experience it a few times to soak it in, and your perspective changes with time. And so I think for me, I just really wanted this movie to exist as a document in the ways that I tried to reflect what happened, or what it would have meant to raise a family, or to have the experience that Inez and Terry had over the course of these years. I wanted it to be something that could be a reference point years from now, as this city continues to transform so dramatically. If people need to see and remember at the turn of the century what was the city.
Yeah, I think this film really kind of demands another watch, because once you see the end, and maybe we'll talk about the ending, later on, but once you see it, it makes me want to go back and re-experience the relationship between the characters all over again. So I encourage people, if you haven't seen it, watch it now. And if you have seen it, do a rewatch, because I think it would be really rewarding. And speaking of Inez, I have to ask you about casting Tiana Taylor as your, protagonist. She's absolutely brilliant in the film. You can't even imagine any other performer in the role. I know Lena Waithe knew Tiana, before working on the film together officially. So, what is it that you saw in her that you knew she would make the absolute perfect Inez?
I saw home. I think as I was going through this process, it was a lot of things on my checklist of what I was looking for. But I think that authenticity, that person who not only understood this woman, but I felt like really could honor my city in the right way, represent us in a right way, and in a way that is truthful. I think by time Tiana came along, and seeing her, read for the role, having conversations with her, it's just like we're both around the way girls. So it's just, I think to see all these elements of her that organically represented my character, it just added to why I was drawn to her and felt like she was the right person to deliver this performance.
Yeah, and what an incredible character on the page too. I wanted to ask you, what do you most admire about Inez as a character as you were crafting her, and as you were writing the screenplay? Was there anything about her character or about her actions that surprised you, maybe when you put it to the page, that you didn't maybe expect the story to go?
I think there's a lot that I love about Inez. To me, I think I would sum it up in like I've always seen her as like a criminal with a heart of gold, and I love that juxtaposition. The fact that as somebody, when she first comes back, at the beginning of the movie, she says like, "I'm here for good. Like, I'm not trying to get in any trouble. Like I'm trying to turn a new leaf in life." And what does she do? She commits another crime, but she commits it from this place of purity, and she's really invested in not only looking out for herself, but really looking out for other people. She's so deeply caring. She's brave in many ways. She's fearless. I think she's resilient. She has all these admirable qualities in her. She's very imperfect, and if anything, to me, this was just an opportunity for people. I hope to have compassion for the complexities of people, because I think in many ways she doesn't even understand how damaged she is, but she's consistent in her fight to heal those wounds that exist in her. So yeah, I always kind of like had a bigger soft spot, maybe biasly, I'm the writer, but I've always had a soft spot for her that I hope people would have as well, when they had the opportunity to meet her.
I think it does, and I think so much of that comes through not just through Tiana's performance, but also by the way you capture it with the camera. I mean, there are some moments you use close up that are so incredibly evocative and powerful and moving. I'm thinking specifically of, one of the early scenes of Inez in the hospital when she really has to make a decision about what to do with Terry. I was just kind of transfixed by that shot. And I just wanted to ask you, when you're using close up, because you use it a couple times, but also sparingly, what you're really drawing the audience in, but what do you want us to kind of experience as we watch like whole journeys play across Tiana's face, and as her character kind of, goes on, makes some really important decisions.
I think it was very intuitive, like the use of close up. I just felt like I always just wanted to be there. I wanted to be with them in the most closest and most immersive way, and that's what I wanted for audience as well. I think it's such a that this movie has a lot of subtext. There's a lot happening that is very, on the surface level, but I think there's a lot of things that it's in the reaction, it's in the quiet moments, it's in what somebody isn't saying, and you just had to be there with them, and I think the moment that you're talking about, it's a really big decision that she's making, as impulsive as it is. And so I think and there's not much being said until she turns around and actually turns to Terry to ask him the question that she does. And so I just really wanted to be fully there with her in that moment, and I felt like people needed that to also register, the gravity of this moment.
Yeah, as you're, kind of talking about it, I'm also thinking of so many of the other great moments and evocative shots. Do you have a favorite shot now that you've finished the movie, you've seen it screen at film festivals? When you've watched it back, is there a particular sequence or moment that you're especially proud of?
I do love the low angle moment when Inez is walking down the street in Brooklyn, and you have the facade of those like very classic, iconic, New York buildings behind her. And then she spits out the sunflower seed. I mean, as I talking to you, it reminds me of myself, just how I grew up in New York City, and that iconic architecture that we have, that is, just continues to be knocked down and just unappreciated for what it is. And to me, Inez is New York personified. Her and all of her complications, her and all of her charisma, everything about her is just oozing with what I love, or what people can cringe at when they think of the experience of New York City. So yeah, I think that shot in that moment, and I feel like, yeah, it means something to me.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful moment. I do want to kind of pause here to say I want to ask you about a couple of the scenes at the end. So if you haven't seen the film, spoiler alert, pause the interview, go watch it, and then come back, because we have to dive into, the kind of end of the film. Specifically, the twist, or to me, was a real surprise when we learn about Inez's real relationship with Terry. Such a kind of beautiful moment, because it, in one sense, changes the way we understand their entire relationship in what came before, but also how much kind of stays the same, how much of their kind of connection and familial dynamic is built, and it doesn't matter, what exactly their connection is. So I wanted to ask you about that kind of moment. How carefully did you have to plot that? How did you think about executing that? Because I'm sure for most audience members, that's a real surprise. So how did you kind of approach that and think about when you're putting that on the page, like how important that moment really is?
Yeah, I think it was super tricky, to set it up in a way that people wouldn't see it coming, and to plant those seeds, because they are there, and it's something that I had to talk with Tiana about too. The moments where as they move along the journey, the moments where she had to hide or to lie or give a half truth, as they moved along, just like handling it with certain subtlety. I think like the first one that I can think, for example, is um when Terry asks at the pizza shop, he's like, where's my mom at? And she says, oh, no, where's my dad at? And she says he's gone. And then she's like, oh, but you wouldn't have liked him or whatever. Like, it's like at first she's unprepared, but then once once she wraps her mind around it, she's kind of like, oh, well, she covers it up, and it's like, of course she doesn't know where his real dad is at, but it's like she's constantly just like adapting as she moves along. And I think she's just so impulsive as well, as this is all she's just figuring it out as she moves along, so she just is constantly trying to cover her tracks, or keep him, appeased, uh until everything just explodes.
I have to ask you about the final shot of the film too, because it's so captivating. First of all, Tiana's performance, as I've been saying, really incredible what she does in that moment. How did you decide that that was where you wanted the film to end? And as we're kind of watching Tiana in the backseat of that cab, what do you want the audience to take away as we kind of cut to black or fade to black and see the credits? What do you hope lingers with them in those final moments?
Well, I think a movie like this, I think the expectation is that it is a difficult story, a challenging story in many ways, but I think as the cameras roll, it's really, I think it ends on a hopeful note, and that was really important to me. And I think people sometimes, especially if they don't fully understand the ending, it's because they have this expectation that this is a certain type of story, and it's for a certain type of way, and it should be depressing and whatever. And it's like, no, Inez is free, and that's a big deal. I think not only for her as a woman, but I think for this type of story as well. I think it's so important that it ends optimistically, for people that come from that experience to know that, like, you can survive it, and you can. And I think Inez's resilience is really important. First of all, Terry's going to be okay, like she says when they're sitting down at that table, she says, I won. I won, because regardless of what is happening presently right now and what we have to figure out, like, you're going to be okay, you're going to be somebody, and you're going to be fine in the world, like, you know what I'm saying. And so he's going to be okay. But I think in those last moments, Inez is that realizes that she's going to be okay too, because yeah, technically there might be some coppers after her. But in this moment she's free. And not only is she free, but she's free in a way that she's never been. She's more whole than she's ever been. Not only is she loved by Terry and loved in ways that are like unconditional, but she also loves herself. And that was the void that she really needed to fill by the end of this story. So to me, it ends in a beautiful, optimistic way, and it's hopeful. And she has another adventure ahead of her, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it is a really terrific ending, and like you said, very hopeful, and just also I think inspires in the audience a lot to think about. Where does the character go next? Avi Rockwell, congratulations on 1001. Thank you so much for talking to Gold Derby today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Bye.